You're listening to No Retreat, hosted by Cheryl Ann, produced by Scott Douglas. Today on No Retreat, our guest is Craig Haggard, Republican primary candidate for Indiana's 4th Congressional District. Welcome to the program, Craig. Would you like to take a few moments and introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, and I appreciate you having me on tonight. Thank you. I am what I guess I would call a late-in-life politician. My entire life was not geared toward politics, nor did I ever think I would be a politician. And my entire dream actually was to become a fighter pilot. Mm-hmm. And that is what I set my life's goals to be, and that is actually what I became. I was blessed and fortunate enough. Back in 91, I was commissioned in the United States Marine Corps, and I went on to, of course, do my infantry school, then to flight school, and I ended up flying Hares in the Marine Corps, and mostly stationed on the East Coast, and traveled throughout the world. And I'm a combat vet. I flew off ships in Operation Allied Force in Kosovo and Serbia. And like I said, had a great time doing that, good and bad. But once again, just felt very blessed that a small town kid like me was able to do that. Was honorably discharged in 2000 and came back to Indiana. And at that point, I took an active duty position with the Indiana Air National Guard, and I ended up flying F-16s with the Indiana Air Guard out of Terre Haute, Indiana, with the 181st, and I was commander of the range at Atterbury, and did that for a number of years. And while I was still in, did a few more things. Of course, I was married and had a couple kids. And during that time, I actually had a construction company, and for 11 years down in central Mexico, led a humanitarian mission for 11 years. That was through my church. I ended up taking that over, but once again, just wonderful life experiences. And in 2013, I retired as lieutenant colonel. At that point, I was hired to become the NRA field director for Indiana. And that's for the non-for-profit side. Worked for the NRA Foundation at that point, and did that for a number of years until I left there. I did some stuff for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Once again, mostly non-for-profit stuff. I was a program manager after that for the Trident missile system upgrade for, if anyone in Indiana, we have a Crane Naval Weapons Research Facility, and did that for a couple of years. And during that time, to be quite honest with you, I got a little, not bored, but I'd always done some sort of service activity. And the redistricting happened about 5 years ago. And I had folks come to me and ask me to run because when they redrew the lines, I was now in an open seat. And at this point, the kids were all grown. I spoke to my wife and I thought, maybe I'll try this. And I ran for office 5 years ago and became a state representative for Indiana. And I've really, really enjoyed it. There's good and there's bad. It's a lot different than I thought it would be. But one of the things that I've really enjoyed are constituent services. And outside of legislation that I've passed, it's been really awesome just by virtue of my position to be able to help a lot of folks throughout my community and my state. And that's been really rewarding. And about 2 years ago, I had a group out of D.C. come to me, Americans for Prosperity, and asked me to run for the 4th Congressional District. They had heard at the time that the current congressman was not going to run again. And so I put out a letter back then to the district and the influencer list, or the important folks, I guess, in politics, and said I was going to run, but I thought it was important. I needed to spend the next couple of years having them get to know me get to know them, and I was going to put 100% effort into it. I had said at the time if the congressman was going to run, I would not run. And at the time he decided to run again. So I ran for my current seat. And this last time, or 2 years ago, prior to the last primary, the congressman had told a lot of people he was not going to run again. And so I changed my exploratory committee to a regular committee, and I've been doing this full time ever since.
Wow. Well, good deal. So you knew since when that you were going to be running in this race?
So when I started looking at it, it was about a little over 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. And I knew that it's something you just don't jump into, at least in my opinion. Yeah. And I really, it's 16 counties. And so I wanted to spend that time to start traveling those counties, learning the area, getting to know the people, seeing what was specific in those areas. And I've met with every sheriff, every prosecutor, most of the elected officials, the mayors, the councilmen, the commissioners, people of the town, Farm Bureau folks, and just to find out, hey, what's unique and specific to those areas, so that I really know the areas. And actually, it's been great because even though I'm from Indiana, I have met so many people that have now become friends. I've discovered areas of Indiana that I did not know existed, and so it's been a really awesome journey to get to know the area. So yeah, it's been about 2.5 years.
So for somebody that's not from Indiana, what area of Indiana is the 4th Congressional District in?
So if you take Indianapolis, which is in the middle of the state, mm-hmm. It does not include Indianapolis, but it basically borders. So you go kind of west to southwest of Indianapolis, and that county, which is the southernmost, which is Morgan County, which is where I live, goes from there all the way up to almost Chicago. So, which is Lake County, which is kind of the north. They call it East Chicago. It's Indiana, but it goes over to Illinois, to the middle of the state. So it's kind of the southwest of Indianapolis, all the way up to almost Chicago.
Oh, wow. So quite a lot of travel within that district.
There are 16 counties. About 4 of the counties hold about 65% of the vote. And that's the 3 counties around Indianapolis, and then up in Lafayette, which is where Purdue University is. And the rest of the counties are fairly rural. We're a big agriculture state. We're the 7th largest by commodity base, 7th largest agricultural state in the nation. So,
well, and you have some real manufacturing industry there. Is there any, off topic a little bit, is there still any manufacturing of RVs? Was that Wabash, Indiana?
No, it's up north. So it is.
Or that's not in your district then?
North Central. Okay. It's not in my district, but we actually are the #1 manufacturing state in the country. So
I believe it. I believe it. I used to sell into manufacturing in another life. I still sell into manufacturing. I just don't travel for it anymore. And I used to travel in Indiana all the time. So
huge military industry, huge technology, state, agriculture, manufacturing, steel production, largest in the country with that. Top 5 producers in pork, popcorn, lavender, mint, largest producer of domestic duck in the country. So the funny thing is, these are all things I learned after becoming state representative. And I love these goofy little things, but it's one of those things where, we're a really great state. I really think we are. I mean, if you had some warmer weather through some beaches, would be perfect. But
unfortunately, you don't get that. But I would agree. I've been all over Indiana, and good folks. So tell me a little bit about. I can clearly understand from all of this variety of experiences that you've had how that shapes you to serve the people in your district. You're already serving them through your current position. But talk a little bit about some of the priorities that you see for your district if you're the representative to go to Washington.
Well, one of the things I see, not only in Indiana, but you see it across the country, and, I think it was really big in this last election, and, people were using that buzzword affordability and things like that. We have a low unemployment rate here, but, prices obviously jumped up, especially during the COVID time. Inflation was high. And I think at the end of the day, nationally, if we don't get our debt under control, I think that's our biggest threat to national security, to our country succeeding, is the national debt, and that's overspending and trying to bring down the inflation. I think one of the biggest things we need to do is get back to the different 12 appropriation bills, no omnibus bills, continue to cut regulations, probably get rid of things we don't need to spend money on in federal government, because even though I have a lot of other interests, I think that's kind of the core at what our biggest problem is in the state, in the country. And it's that is probably our number one threat to our nation. And so that's what I'm hoping that my experience in serving, my experience in business, my experience being a legislator in the state, just all those, and then also just knowing the people, what the issues are on a local level, from like we talked about, from the manufacturing side to the worker side. I'm also supported by about 10 national unions as a Republican, which I know that's kind of a little bit different. It's becoming a new trend, but I also speak to a ton of those members. And I try to really put myself in their shoes on what real world expenses are, family expenses are, college expenses are, things like that. And
well, before Obamacare, okay, a Republican could realistically be against unions, okay? Because before Obamacare, average American citizens who didn't work in the trades were able to get good quality health insurance plans that didn't bankrupt their families to carry them. They didn't have to belong to a union in order to get that. I know because I used to have one of those jobs that provided me with a wonderful health care plan along with a very good wage. I didn't need a union to get it, okay? But I will say that Republicans are much more prone to be supportive of unions, and I think that now than they were then. And I believe a lot of that is in part due to the fact that part of union negotiations deal with providing the benefits. And without a good benefit package, I don't care what what job you go into, you're going to be having a problem right now. It's just my opinion.
No, I agree. One of the biggest things I know I'm blessed with being a retired military guy is I have health insurance for life, and I've started to, especially in this process and speaking with workers and with constituents and like you said with unions, how blessed I am. An example is to be honest with you, I was naive. I assumed that, and let's take firefighters, for example, and I've been working with the firefighters my entire time. I'm on the Public Safety Committee, now supported by a tremendous amount of firefighter unions. I assumed, like the military, you serve this time, you retire, and then you'll be taken care of. And I realized, at least in Indiana, that's not the case with the firefighters. And we have a tremendous amount of individuals that are staying long past when they should, that their bodies are just getting beaten up because they can't afford that health care when they get done. And then you start to realize my daughters, when they came off my military insurance, and I've started to try to help them get insurance. And now I'm seeing it from a whole different perspective because I was blessed my entire life with the military and the insurance. That was one place that I probably didn't have the life experience. And now, from my family to the people to the constituents I work with, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's one of the biggest issues with affordability. People take jobs for that. We have a FedEx facility in Indianapolis, probably second to Memphis, and I have a tremendous amount of friends who do the night shift to sort packages just for the health insurance. And they don't really make any money out of it. It's for the health insurance. So that is a huge driving factor. And you mentioned the unions. The one thing I do like about the unions, they have, a great wage, great insurance, great retirement packages, just all these things, self-funded training. The training centers are wonderful, and they do it all without a dime from the government. And speaking of their members, I would say in Indiana, the largest majority of members, even though a lot of the leadership is still Democrat, a lot of the members are Republican. But I try to remind everybody, and I truly believe this, I took an oath to the Constitution, not to a party.
Correct.
And I had lunch last week with one of my former skippers, as we called him in the Marine Corps, a 3-star retired Marine general that's a friend of mine now. And we started talking about reunions that we're actually going to have this summer coming up, and different individuals that are probably more left-leaning Marine Corps guys. And we kept saying, oh, he's this, or he's a Democrat, or he's... And we kind of laughed and said, when we served, we actually never spoke about this sort of stuff. We really didn't. It was just, we believed in we had one common core belief, and that's what I still think we should have. And even though I'm a very hardcore conservative guy, I still recognize that the Democrats in the House I serve with today are good friends of mine. And to be honest with you, we probably believe in about 90% of the same stuff, maybe different ways on how to get there. There's a couple things we'll probably never agree on, but that's okay. And I really do think we need to get back to working with each other.
Well, you and I are similar in age, so we can both remember a time when public debate and discourse between the parties in America did not lead to burning cities down. War protests did lead to that early, but there's been lots of debate over the years, and very vehement debates between the parties about different things that didn't cause widespread rioting and looting because people didn't agree with one another. And I wish we could get back to that decorum myself.
I really think we need to. I've heard people say, and you've probably heard this too, it's never been this bad. It's never been this bad. Now, I was very young, and you were young too. But from reading from history, I know back in the early 70s, late 60s, the nation was pretty bad.
It was, but
against each other.
Yeah, but we did get somewhere in the 80s and 90s where we weren't hurling insults at everybody that thought something different than us, and we weren't up in arms every time there was a difference of opinion. And I would love to get back to a space where,
that's what I want to get to. That gives me hope.
Where people could actually debate an issue and not hate each other because they don't agree. I'll give you an example. I have a group of women. I'm 60. I got a group of women I graduated high school with. We're in a Facebook group together, right? And got two of them, one that's very, very liberal and one that's very, very conservative. And anytime the very, very conservative lady makes a comment on anything, even if it has nothing to do with politics, the very, very liberal lady also makes a comment on her comment and always ties it back to something political. I finally just had to say, stop. Let's just not have political stuff in our group. Because it's too much.
It is very, very, very frustrating. And what I see now at the federal level, and this is one of the main reasons I wanted to run for Congress, is I think Indiana, and we all have our flaws, we'll always have our flaws, but I think Indiana's in fairly good shape. But when I see up there you have a party, and it goes for Republican or Democrat, when you have a president in power from one party or the other, the opposite party, my perception is, not being there, I'll just say my perception is that even if it's a good idea, I'm going to go against it if it makes that president look good. And I only vote for it if it makes him look bad, if I'm with the opposite party. And we just have to get away from that, because as far as I'm concerned, either party, if you do that, you're not fulfilling your oath.
Well, correct, because like you said, when you served, okay, and even when you're serving in your state, right, and you take your oath, you are there to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. You're not there to be chief opposition to people you don't like. That's not your goal. Your goal is not to make sure that your party wins the next election. Your goal is to uphold the Constitution and to represent the people who elected you to be their representative, right? To go there with their good in mind. And it has become very perverted from that, from that setup, from that goal.
It really has, which is sad.
So what are some of the other priorities you see for your district?
Well, I think that maintaining jobs are important here. So, that goes with manufacturing, that goes with bringing jobs back to the United States. I know that we were really huge in Indiana with a lot of the automotive manufacturers, and I know that has dropped with domestic automotive companies. Now, we have grown with Honda, Toyota, things like that, I think, which is ironic. I think Honda, the Accord is the most American-made automobile out there, but I am for definitely bringing those jobs and facilities back to not only the country, but to Indiana, making sure that we become the leaders in technology. I know the big thing right now is with AI and these data centers. That's a big issue here in Indiana. You have those for and against, but I think if people understood that it's a national security issue, I think that's an issue. I think that we just need to continue to be on the cutting edge of things in the world to make sure that we make that here, because we've become, back in the day, and this is probably from listening to my grandparents, but we were a manufacturing country. We made things, and now we've passed that. We're consumers. We're majority consumers in the country when stuff is manufactured in other places in the world. Even though we have a lot here, most of that has left our country, and I think that bringing that back and incentivizing companies to come back, I think that's really important for our existence and national security.
I couldn't agree more. And I think especially for representatives, right? Maybe not so much for senators, but for representatives in the House, as you look at your districts, right? You will be the people that are the most on the ground to know what the capabilities in your communities are, right? Mm-hmm. What type of workforce you have available in your communities, what kind of properties you have available in your communities that can enhance the ability of people in your communities, right, to create good lives, right? Because that's what it's all about, bringing manufacturing back or the data centers or whatever. If it doesn't serve the interest of the constituency in your district, right, then it's not for you. And I really like the idea of a more hands-on approach of, representatives really helping bring those things into their districts.
No, I think that's important. And
I don't know how we make it happen, but I just, I think it's key, right?
Well, and we have and I guess I'm blessed to be from here too, because I have, we have the farming, which is agriculture, which is huge. We have technology. We have this new quantum corridor going in. We have the data centers. We have Eli Lilly and other pharma companies. We're one of the largest in the world. Like I talked about, manufacturing, steel, military industry is huge here. We have bases, testing bases. So we really do have this smorgasbord, if you want to call it that, of industry in Indiana to be able to offer not only companies domestically, but internationally come here. So I think there's a lot. But like you said, you have to know what you have, what you can offer them, what spaces are available, what assets are available, things like that. So yeah, we have a lot of capabilities and future capabilities I think we could bring here to Indiana.
And so jobs, affordability, reining in federal spending, the budget process, right? All key top, focus areas. Are there any other things that you can think of that are maybe specific to your district or to Indiana that are
with
top?
My background, national security, I'd love to be on Armed Forces Committee. I'd love to be actually on appropriations on the Armed Forces Subcommittee because not only that's my background, but we have a tremendous amount of that industry here in Indiana, and a lot of growing capabilities. We're currently working on some UAV site selection stuff here in Indiana. Like I said, we have Crane Naval Weapons Research Facility, which it's called the Westgate Complex, which we have billions and billions of dollars being brought in with private industry for a ton of military testing for different things, from the Trident missile stuff to AI to UAV interdiction. Anyway, just all sorts of capabilities. That's another huge thing that I think not only Indiana has to offer, but I have the background to be able to work with those folks in industry and on the ground.
Well, and I don't think that can be overstated, because people oftentimes forget about the fact that when you go up as a congressperson to D.C. and you get placed on committees, right? A lot of times, I don't know, there's a huge makeup in Congress right now of lawyers, okay?
Yeah, I'm not one of those. So.
And nothing against lawyers. I'm not going to make a lawyer joke or anything like that. I'm just going to say that real world experience in a variety of, excuse me, in a variety of areas is needed for some of these committees. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have legislators that get there and are placed on committees, but they don't have any background or real world knowledge about how that specific sector of the government works or intersects with the American people. And I think it's important that we get people that actually understand something about the area that they're getting put on a subcommittee, not just legal experience. I mean, it's good to have legal experience, but the real world is run by real people that have real world experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's important too. And they try, and in the State House, try to place us on some of the committees we have experience, which is why I'm on Veterans and Public Safety. My experience, one of the other committees I'm on is Road. It's in transportation and infrastructure, basically. And I've been on that committee for about 4 years. And that's another committee that I wouldn't mind being on, that I now have experience, which I did not have prior to serving the State House and serving the state of Indiana. But I think that is important. You do see people. I watch, and I may be one of those geeky kind of guys because I'll watch C-SPAN in some of the hearings. And you can tell some individuals that have no real experience in what they're talking about. And that's the tough part, right? I mean, I always joke when I speak with kids, and I'll start off by kind of asking them how much they know about politics or whatever. And I say, kids, do you know what it takes to have my job? And I might joke, use the Step Brothers quote, I'm kind of a big deal. What do you think I have to do to be me? And they, say this or that. And I'm like, no, kids, I have to win a popularity contest to be alive. And so that's kind of our tough nut to crack in DC. You have folks that are there, but what are their real backgrounds? And so I know that we can't change that, but I truly do want to be placed on committees that I like, to your point, that I have experience, and when I don't know, or hey, I shouldn't be on that committee, I should be on this committee. Now, at the end of the day, it's not up to me, but I really do hope that I'm placed on those committees where I can really give back. Now, having said that, if I'm placed on another committee, I'll still take that as a challenge. One of the things I learned about being in the military, and we always said this in the Marine Corps, if you couldn't admit when you were wrong, or if you couldn't admit when you didn't know something, you were dangerous. So I've always been up front with folks, and actually I've always been told I'm a different kind of politician here, because I'll say, I don't know, I'm not going to BS you. I have no idea, but I'm going to find out. And I'll learn, and I'll go to those experts and rely on them to give me some information. Then I'll make a decision off that. And I don't know if we have enough of those folks in Congress will admit, I don't know. I'm wrong. I was wrong about this. I'll change my mind. And those things are okay. And I think people have a hard time realizing that it's okay if you screw up something, admit it and move on. I think we have too many people who won't do that and just keep pressing the bad idea even when they know it's a bad idea.
Oh, I would say we have lots of examples of that. I would say we have one example that I know of on a national scale of a senator that is not of the Republican Party, but who will vote for things that they think are right, even if it doesn't make his party happy. And I think we need many more people that can take principled stands, and especially if it's something they know something about.
Sorry about that.
No
That's my
problem.
phone.
Especially if it's something they know something about, right? Like a specific area. Very good.
So now I assume I think I know who you're talking about, and my opinion of that individual has changed through the years. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I never thought I would be like, hey, that guy's
the voice of reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we all know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Here, but it's actually kind of refreshing. So
it is, and that's what I hear in your voice. A desire to get to that place where you can have an honest debate with somebody. You can talk about an issue. You can even maybe agree on what the end point is. You just disagree on how to get there, right? So, like most of us want life to be affordable. We just disagree with how we get there. Most of us want there to be no kids that are going hungry. We just disagree about how to get there, right? I mean, it would be great if we could get back to just the basics and everybody just says, yeah, that is where we want to get. We just disagree on how we get there. No,
I always start my conversations and briefings with folks in the room, and it's something we were taught, and I'm sure it's taught in many places, but we were always taught this kind of in the military was, okay, here's our objective, here's our commander's intent, whatever you call it. Can we all agree on this? And everybody went, yeah, we can agree on that. Okay, now let's talk about how we get there. And that's kind of how I look at most issues, because I think, like I said, 90+% of everything that everybody debates about or believes in, I think we agree on those same principles. And I think we can find a way to work with each other. So at least that's my goal. Maybe I'm naive, but either way, I'm going to try.
If that's naivete, let's go for it. Let's have more of it. So as we kind of get ready to wrap this up, let's talk about, Craig, when is your primary and where can people connect with you to learn more, to volunteer, to donate, etc.? How can they get involved?
Okay, so the primary in Indiana is May 5th. Cinco de Mayo. So it is, and in this particular race in the 4th Congressional District, the primary is the race. It's an R+24-ish district.
Okay.
So it is, May 5th.
Whoever wins the Republican primary will probably win the race, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Got it.
And early voting starts in about a month and a half, first week of April. So very soon. My website is haggardforcongress.com. And that's just my name, Haggard, forcongress.com. And actually, I think HoosiersForHaggard.com also leads there. But that site has some stuff about me, how you can contact me, how you can volunteer. If you have questions, I've actually made it a point to personally answer everybody back at this point. I'm going to continue to try to do that to the best of my ability, which is amazing to me because I'm just a normal guy. I always tell people, guys, I'm no different than you. I'm just, blessed to be able to be here and run for this. But I do have people when they call, we leave a number to call or I call back and they say things like, oh, wait, you're the candidate. And I said, well, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm the person. Once again, I need to find out. And that's how I've run my entire campaign. So and that's where you go to find out about me.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, Craig, for taking some time out today to talk to me and share your heart and your vision for service for Indiana's Congressional District number 4. And we hope that we're going to be hearing more from you in the future.
Awesome. I really, really appreciate you having me on and everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye. You've been listening to No Retreat. Guest, Craig Haggard. And as always, everyone, be blessed and be a blessing. Thank you.